Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and to all of you who are watching this video presentation. So today we are going to learn about evaluating decentralized operations. So here, um, speaking behind the presentation is yours truly, Architect Jenny Divino Libot from the MSBA. So in retailers, now they can offer a wide choice of items and products and knowledge in particular areas by organizing into departments. So companies can also assign accountability for financial performance through departments. No, so decisions on new products, assessments of operations, and corporate strategy can all be made using this information. Then a competent department manager may be the reason for strong departmental performance, but a poorly suited product mix may be the cause of poor departmental success. So companies can discover and recognize exceptional performance and address underperforming departments by monitoring departmental performance and implementing corrective measures. So here in this presentation, we are going to tackle what are the importance of having decentralized departments and what are its advantages and disadvantages. Responsibility accounting, what are cost, profit, and investment centers, and then residual income. So, unsa man ibot pasabot niya. And then we will also tackle about transfer pricing. So, what are the difference between market, negotiated, and cost pricing? And we will also have sample problems as we go along with the presentation. So, here I have a simple introduction made by yours truly, no, Architect Jenny, and then this is a help through AI. So I hope you will enjoy the introduction.
Have you ever wondered why departmental organization is vital in retail? Why some stores seem to flow seamlessly while others are a maze of confusion? Let's dive into the world of retail, where organization is not just a preference, but a key to success. Consider the case of a well-known retailer, the globally recognized brand IKEA. With hundreds of stores worldwide, this Swedish giant has mastered the art of departmental organization. Each IKEA store is a series of departments, each specializing in a particular category of home goods. From bedroom furniture to kitchen appliances, each department is a world in itself, providing customers with a comprehensive range of products and expert advice. IKEA's departmental organization is not just about guiding customers through a logical journey of home furnishing. It's about creating an environment where customers can easily locate what they need and discover products they didn't know they wanted. It's about efficiently managing inventory, streamlining operations, and maximizing sales. The benefits of this approach are evident in IKEA's success. By organizing their stores into departments, IKEA has been able to offer an extensive range of products without overwhelming their customers. Each department functions as a mini store, with its own inventory, staff, and sales targets. This allows IKEA to cater to a wide range of customer needs while maintaining a high level of service and expertise. So what can we take away from this? Firstly, a departmental organization allows for specialization. Each department can focus on a specific product range, becoming experts in their field and providing customers with knowledgeable advice and guidance. Secondly, departmental organization simplifies inventory management. By breaking down the store into smaller units, it becomes easier to monitor stock levels, identify popular products, and anticipate customer demand. Finally, a departmental organization increases sales. By guiding customers through a logical journey, retailers can encourage impulse purchases and upselling, boosting their bottom line. In conclusion, the importance and benefits of departmental organization in retail are clear. It allows for specialization, simplifies inventory management, and increases sales. It's not just about keeping the shelves tidy. It's about creating an efficient, customer-focused environment that drives success. Just ask IKEA. Remember, in the world of retail, organization is not just a preference. It's a key to success. So whether you're furnishing a home or a retail store, always remember, a place for everything and everything in its place.
Okay, so let us differentiate what is centralized and decentralized. So from the video presentation, we know we have already an introduction on sama na ang decentralized. Now, a centralized company, so the top management, okay, makes all of the important operating and planning decision. So, kung kinsa tong kung ang centralized, it is mainly used for kanang small lang no nga mga firms and businesses. So, the top management sila gyud kasagaran sa dili kasagaran but tanan no always planning and operating decisions, okay. And then for decentralized, because it is decentralized, no, you have a lot of managers because it is a big company already, big firm. It is best to decentralize your company. So with all the planning and operating decisions, these are done by different managers. So kana siya. Lain-lain nga manager in a different unit, in a different division, lain-lain sila og planning and operating decisions. Okay? So, operating responsibility is assigned to managers of distinct divisions or units in a decentralized organization. So, the division managers are in charge of organizing and managing their division's activities. So, divisions are frequently organized according to clients, goods, and geographical areas. Now, this is a system. Kani makita nimo dinhi sa presentation. This is how the system sa centralized versus a decentralized, no? Bali lang siya ang ato ang words, but on the right side sa image, you have decentralized. Isa lang, no, the top management or usually the owner. Siya ang nag-decide sa tanan. And then eventually, he passes on the activities to different staff. And then for decentralized authority, you have different people, different managers, deciding for all the process and decision making sa imuhang company. So there are disadvantages and advantages sa kuano sa ato ang decentralized. Okay? We have for the advantages, we have number one, it allows managers closest to the operations to make decisions. Of course, kay naaman siya dito, makakita siya no sa tibuok nga dako nga division, the top head manager of that certain division, kabalo siya sa unsay gikinahanglan even sa needs sa consumers or the customers. So, maka-decide siya what is best. And then, second, it provides excellent training for managers. Allows managers to become experts in their area of operation. Now, usay man gud sa centralized, mahimo silang kuan kanang man of all trades. So, tungod kay centralized siya, kamay ra sad ang staffing, no, ilahatanan. So, lahi ra siya sa decentralized because it allows managers to become experts in their area of operation. So, tungod kay mao na focus niya, ana siya mahimo skilled, no? So tawag ana ma-improve niya. It's the same with teaching. If you are in the university, kung isa ka ka-instructor, kung kana lang kalingaw ang imuhang topic or imuhang subject in a certain school year, you will be an expert. No, kay dili mo perfect sa first year, but on the second year that you are teaching that topic, makuan siya, ma-elevate nimo ang imuhang knowledge and expertise, and from that on you can give series of activities sa imong students. So it's the same scenario, ma-apply gihapon nato ang atong learning. So next, it helps retain managers. Of course, no? Kay tungod kay mao may ilahang field, no? Maka-retain siya og manager. So improves creativity and customer relations. So mo niya akong giingon because naara man diha ang manager, makita niya kung unsay gikinahanglan sa end user, which is our kanang customers. So makita nila unsay need. So, ang disadvantage po, decisions made by managers may negatively affect the profits of the company. So, kani manggong decentralization, they have also their own kanang units, no? They decide the prices and kanang asa sila mo palit if they are having products ingon ana. So it can be nga ang ilang decision makaapekto sa other division sa company. So it can somehow affect no, sa profit sa tibuok nga company. And it duplicates asset and expenses. Of course, kay you have different naman division. So in one division, you're going to have an accounting group, or you're going to have a facility management under that division. So lain-lain. So you have to provide each division sa tanan assets, no, and expenses nimo. So here, let us also learn about, think we are getting to our responsibility accounting. So what it is all about. So here I have another video that talks about responsibility accounting.
Have you ever wondered how a large corporation manages the financial decisions of its numerous departments, divisions, or units? Well, the answer lies in a concept known as responsibility accounting. Responsibility accounting is a management control system that holds specific managers responsible for the financial performance of their organizational units. It's like delegating financial decision-making power to those who are directly involved in the day-to-day operations of a unit. To paint a clearer picture, imagine a large ship. The captain can't possibly control every single operation on the ship. So he assigns responsibilities to his crew members. The engine room, the deck, the navigation. Each has a leader responsible for its functioning. Similarly, in a corporation, each division or department has a manager who oversees the financial operations of that unit. This concept is based on the idea that accountability should align with authority. If you're entrusted with the responsibility of managing a unit, you should also have the authority to make financial decisions for that unit. This way, each unit operates like a separate business with its own revenues, costs, and profits. Responsibility accounting also involves setting performance targets for each unit. These targets are like guiding stars, helping managers navigate their unit towards the company's overall financial goals. Managers are then evaluated based on how well they meet these targets. This creates a culture of accountability and motivates managers to make decisions that benefit their unit and ultimately the company. But what happens when things go wrong? Well, that's where the concept of controllable and uncontrollable costs comes in. Controllable costs are those that a manager can directly influence, like the cost of raw materials. Uncontrollable costs, on the other hand, are those that a manager has no control over, like economic fluctuations. Responsibility accounting recognizes this difference and only holds managers accountable for controllable costs. So, to summarize, responsibility accounting is a system that delegates financial decision-making power to managers of various units within a corporation. It aligns accountability with authority, promotes a culture of accountability, and differentiates between controllable and uncontrollable costs. It's a powerful tool that enables corporations to manage their financial operations more effectively. Like a well-oiled machine, each unit works towards the company's overall financial goals, driven by its own engine of responsibility. Remember, like a ship's crew, every manager plays a critical role in steering the company towards its financial destination. And responsibility accounting is the compass that guides them on this journey. So the next time you wonder how large corporations manage their financial operations, you'll know it's all about responsibility accounting.
So after the video that I made through AI, we now know what is responsibility accounting. Now, responsibility accounting, it has three types of responsibility. We call them responsibility centers. We have cost centers, profit centers, and investment centers. So cost centers responsible over cost, then profit centers responsible over revenues and cost, and then investment centers responsible over revenues, cost, and investment in assets. So in a certain company or even a university, it can be divided into different divisions. Now, with that different division, you can call them cost centers. So they will be the one responsible unsa man ang mga cost nag-involve ana. So here, with our next slides, we will focus on the cost centers. So cost centers, they play a vital role in the financial management of any organization. They are specific departments or divisions within a company that incur cost in order to carry out the respective functions. Now, these cost centers can vary from production units, marketing teams, research and development departments to administrative units. So, the purpose of cost centers is to track and allocate expenses, allowing businesses to monitor and control their cost effectively. So, with our cost centers, of course, kana no magkuan sila sa ilang cost, tanan cost nga nakuha nila. So that is their focus. So budget performance reports that report budgeted and actual cost are normally prepared for each cost center. So si cost center, mag-prepare na siya og budgeted niya and then sa iyang actual cost. So all the cost nga na experience or nakuha sa company. So here, responsibility accounting reports are usually more summarized for higher levels of management. So here, this is an example of a report. No, makita nimo din ha. Here, mo ni ilahang structure. You have the vice president production, and then naa siya plant A and plant B. Under plant A, naa siya manager plant A, and then under manager plant A, naa siya tulo ka departments. Now, here, in this example, sa kuan lang ni siya, Department 1, ganing report siya kay manager plant A. And then, from manager plant A, ni-report siya for kanang vice president nga production. No? So, kani siya gi-short na lang ni diri. So of course kani si plant B muhatag po ni siya og report. As you can see here, plant B, as you can see here, diri no sa plant B na ano na siya report kung pila iyang budgeted and then iyang nagasto sa month of October, no? October 31st. So here makita nimo ang iyang breakdown. Now, before na siya nag-abot diri gid sa kinaunhan pa, no, sa kinaubsan. So this is from Department 1. This is an example sa Supervisor Department 1. Nag-report siya din ha unsa iyang budgeted for other factory wages, materials, supervisory salaries, power and light, depreciation of plant and equipment, maintenance, insurance, and property taxes. So mo ni ang budgeted. Now, because nahuman naman si October 31, naa siya actual cost. Pila iyang actual nga nagasto compared to the budgeted cost. So, makita nimo nga they have an over budget of $1,725. That is their over budget. So, even though some parts of their units here naa sila mga under budget, but to sum it up nagihapon no nagihapon siya kuan kulang. So mo ni siya over budget sa department 1 gi total na siya diretso dire. So adto na ni sa report ni manager plant A. So si manager na ang maggama ani nga report. It's somehow a summary of unsa may gihatag ni department 1, department 2, department 3. So in this case, makita nimo no nga si manager A naghatag na siya. So naa siya report ni department 2 and department 3. So makita nimo dinhi sa over budget mao ni siya no 1,725 minus 170 nga under budget. Mao ni siya ang over budget is $1,555. So kana siya. And then eventually ma-total gihapon na siya, mo ni siya ma-carry on dire. So they have an over budget of 2,855. That is for plant A. And then for plant B na sila under budget nga $925. So that is what we call the responsibility accounting when it comes to cost, no, cost centers. So in the different departments magama silag ilaha nga ug unsa ray under sa ilahang umbrella, and then they pass it on to the higher department and then eventually maabot sa highest nga position, highest level or position. So next we have the profit centers. So what are profit centers? May example ng profit centers. Profit centers is a business unit or department within an organization that generates revenues and profits or losses. So management closely monitors the results of profit centers since these entities are the key drivers of the total results of the parent entity. So here we have controllable no revenue, and then the uncontrollable nga revenue. So mo ginitan-awon sa profit centers. So anang depita, management typically uses profit center results to decide whether to allocate additional funding to them and also whether to shut down low performing units. So the manager of a profit center usually has the authority to make decisions regarding how to earn revenue and which expenses to incur. So we have controllable revenues and controllable expenses. So what are controllable revenues? Controllable revenues are revenues and expenses that are controlled, of course, by the manager. And then controllable expenses are costs that can be influenced by the decisions of profit center managers. So kanilang ang ma-appeal sa iyahang reports, no? Ang controllable lang revenue and expenses. So mo na iyahang focus. So the controllable expenses of profit centers include direct operating expenses such as sales, salaries, and utility expense. So si profit centers, pwede po na siya nga naa siya'y other expenses kung nagkuha siya from support departments. So for example, sa isa ka division, kailangan siya og other no mga department nga mo support sa ilahang trabaho. It can be research and development, it can be legal. So legal, of course, itong mga lawyers, you have to pay them, no, telecommunications, information and computer system, no, sa atong mga IT. If you talk about bigger ng mga companies, they have their own system. Even sa kanang biometrics that is included within the system, facilities management with all the safety and kanang the surroundings. No, appeal na siya if they need that one. So the profit centers are going to include those kanang mga costing ana niya, the purchasing, advertising, payroll accounting, transportation, human resources, and etc. and other support department allocations. So here we have an example ani niya. So si Nova Entertainment Group support department allocations, naa siya'y duha ka division, naa siya'y theme park and naa pud siya'y movie production nga division. So mo ni iyahang reporting, no, iyahang reporting sa iyahang profit center. So makita nimo they have here pila ang ilahang allocation gikan sa support department kanina siya kuan dinhi. And then from here sa ubos, you have here the revenues. So iyang gipakita dinhi ang revenues. Pila ang revenue ni theme park, pila ang revenue ni movie production division. And they also have the different expenses from the support department allocations, gibutang din na purchasing, payroll accounting, legal. So naa siya total nga $479,000. So the operating income mo ni ang iyahang hatag report. So with the profit centers, i-appeal nila no kung pila ang total sales and then the expenses and including expenses nga allocated. So kanang naaman tay mga cost allocations, usay kanang budgetary nga allocation no from the department support. So i-appeal na siya sa kanang reporting kana ingon ana. So here makita sa nimo this is an example no. So Johnson's company has two divisions, the East and West, and then that operates profit centers. So sales cost of goods and sold, selling expenses for the two divisions for the year ended December 31. So mo ni iyahang presentation no, sa iyang sales, mo na siya both East and West division and cost of goods and sold and selling expenses. And then sa iyahang report sad naa siya from the legal department mao ni ang total cost, and the tech support department mausad ni. And then here we have a record sa legal sa East Division, pilay sa legal department, pilay hours nga na-allocate nila nga sila ang magbayad, and then for the tech support pila, no, from these details nga naa dinhi kani siya dinhi, we have the East, the West Division, kana pila ang allocated hours, and tech support, pila ka computers nga nagamit. Iyan na siyang gi-divide with the total hours, because the legal department $350, and then gi-divide niya sa number of hours, no? So, mo na siya nga mo equal siya as $175 per hour of service. So kani siya mo ni imuhang ibutang dinhi. So for the East, naa say support department allocation sa iyang legal diri naa siya 87,500. So that is 500 hours, no? 500 hours kay diri sa iyang hatag nga kuan dinhi is 500 hours. So times 175 per hour, which is the result ani nga computation mo ni siyang 87,500. And that is so on and so forth, no? With this one also, sa West pud nga department sa legal, it is 262,500 with coming from this kanang kuan equation. And then with the tech support, pareha ra gihapon, no? 100,000 ang iyang gibutang dinhi because of this one, no? Kana siya. So 80 computers times 1,250 per computer. So including na pud kani siya, because you're going to multiply it by this one, and then mo na ni ang total nimo, and then you will solve for the operating income, which will result to 312. In this case sa East, it is 312,500, and for the West it is 1,537,500. So here it is an example nga mo ni siya, no, katong mga recent pa nga mga discussions in responsibility accounting. Kinahanglan gihapon ka sa imong historical data, no, unsa may kinahanglan ang imong data kuan gyud siya, tarong gyud ang imong data, dili siya na missing, no, na mga lapses, kay para matarong nimo ang imong reporting. Okay, so next slide, we will move on to our investment centers. So, investment centers, apil na ana nila i-consider ang cost or mga tanan expenses and other revenue, of course. And because decisions affecting expenses and income, as well as the funds invested in the center, are within the purview and power of investment center management. So, in diversified business with divisional structures, investment centers are frequently utilized. So, investment centers are business units in a firm that can utilize capital to contribute directly to a company's profitability. So, it is sometimes called as investment division. So, kani siya, appeal sa i-consider niya ang ROI, or kanang mga assets nimo i-consider na siya nimo, because you are going to have a measure of performance. So there are two additional measure of performance in investment centers. So mo nang si manager, no, kinahanglan masolve niya ang operating income. So we have two measures of performance. We have the number one, return of investment, or the ROI, and the residual income. So unsa man ni sila, kani silang duha. So in the reporting mo to kikinahanglan nga kuhaon ni kanang manager, no? So here I have another video for you.
Ever wondered how investment center managers measure performance? Tackling this question demands a deep dive into two critical concepts: return on investment, also known as ROI, and residual income. Let's begin with return on investment. It's a popular performance measure used not only by investment center managers but also by stakeholders to gauge the profitability of an investment. So how do we calculate it? It's simple. Divide the net income from an investment by the cost of the investment Then multiply by 100 to express it as a percentage. The higher the ROI, the better the investment is performing. Now, imagine a scenario where a company invests $1 million in a project that brings a net income of $200,000 annually. To figure out the ROI, divide 200,000 by 1 million, giving a result of 0.2. Multiply this by 100 and voila! The ROI is 20%. That's a pretty decent return, right? Now let's shift gears and talk about residual income. It's a bit more complex than ROI, but equally important. Residual income is the net operating income that an investment center earns above the minimum required return on its operating assets. In simpler terms, it's what's left over after the cost of capital has been deducted from the operating income. The formula to calculate it is residual income equals operating income minus operating assets times the minimum required rate of return. Let's take a look at an example. Suppose a company has an operating income of $300,000, operating assets worth $1 million, and a minimum required rate of return of 15%. To find the residual income first, calculate 15% of 1 million, which gives $150,000. Subtract this from the operating income of $300,000, and the residual income is $150,000. The higher the residual income, the more value the investment center is adding to the company. In summary, return on investment is a ratio that tells us how well an investment is performing by comparing the net income from the investment to its cost. On the other hand, residual income gives a deeper insight into the value an investment center is adding to the company by showing what's left over after the cost of capital has been accounted for. Both these measures are vital tools in the hands of investment center managers, helping them make informed decisions and steer their companies towards financial success. Understanding these concepts equips one with the knowledge to evaluate the performance and profitability of investments, a skill that's invaluable in the world of finance and beyond.
Okay, so sa atong mga video, no, wala pa ta naka-premium. So, we're just using the free AI. So, anyhow, let me continue with what does it mean unsa man ang ROI. So, in the ROI, kani siya, this is our formula. So, operating income with respect to the investment assets. So, here, we also have the formula for the residual income is the operating income minus the minimum required rate of return times the average operating assets. So for the ROI, using the DuPont formula, we have here the return on investment. Mao ni siya ang ato ang formula, no? Profit margin times investment turnover. Which is profit margin, that is the profit earned on each sales unit, and we have the formula operating income is to with respect to sales. And then for our investment turnover, we have the sales with respect to investment assets. So the number of sales unit generated by each unit of investment assets. So here we have an example. So here we have a data from a company. No, they have 3 divisions: Northern, Central, and Southern divisions. So for Northern division, na siya $350,000. Yeah, sa Central, na siya $700,000. Sa Southern division, na siya $500,000. So ato ni siyang calculate ang iyang ROI using the formula. So very easy, nga naon lang siya nimo operating income, which is 70. Kani day siya nga kani siya nga mga kuan dinhi, this is given, no, mo ni iyahang operating income kaning 84. These are the data that you are going to gather sa kanang imuhang books. So kani i-divide lang nimo and then you can have the answer for the ROI, which is 20%, 12%, and 15%. So mo na siya, no. We also have here a formula for using the DuPont formula. Return on investment, we have the profit margin times the investment turnover. The same ra gud gihapon ang kanang kuan ang answer sa isa ka formula, but this one is you are going to dig a little bit deeper. You will have your profit margin and the investment turnover. So with this one, with the Northern Division, na siya sales, which is the operating income with respect to sales, 70,000 over 560, divide na siya nimo. Kani siya, gidiretso na lang ni siya og percentage. So, after you divide this one, you're going to multiply it by 100 to get the percentage. And then with this one, mo ni ang imuhang rate value, which is 1.6, equals to 20%. Maura gihapon ang answer, no, pag niagi. So, this is so on and so forth. You just have to follow the formula, which is the return on investment. Operating income is to sales times sales is to investment assets. So that is profit margin times investment turnover. So kani silang naa dinhi sa second, these are the investment turnover, and then on the right side, ani dapita, this is the profit margin. Okay, so profit margin, it indicates operating profitability. And then investment turnover, it indicates operating efficiency. Right? Let's move on to our next slide. Here we have the residual income. So the residual income, mo ni akong gihatag ninyong formula ganina, no? So the money that the company or individual has left over after meeting their financial obligations. So note that the minimum rate is set by top management. So, kanang minimum rate na to, ang top management may mag-decide na how much would be the rate. Set. Okay, so here, we have here an example from Yummy Foods Company. So, diversified ang iyang company, no? Daghan siya og, daghan siya og kanang division na siya tulo ka buok. So, naa siya snack, and then canned foods, and then naa siya frozen foods. So here mao ni ang iyahang data nga gihatag. So ato ning hinumduman na siya revenue nga 784, kaning canned foods na 940, 800, si frozen na apud siya 1,050,000. And then the operating expenses kani siya. And then sa ato ang operating income na siya total nga 9480. Si canned foods na siya 141,120. Si frozen na siya 105,000. And then the total investment assets is 448,000. Si canned foods na siya 940, 800. And then si frozen foods na siya 750,000. Now the question here, number 1, is using the Duple formula for return on investment, compute the profit margin, investment turnover, and return on investment for each division. And then determine the residual income for each division, assuming a minimum acceptable return on investment is 40%. Okay, mo ni akong giingon ha nga kani nga percentage ang top management mo magbuot ani. So, let's solve the problem. Okay? So, kani mo bantayan na to, always ha, the operating income and then the investment assets. Kani siya nga mga digits here sa pag-solve na to. So, here, this is the solution. Ang first, mag-compute ka sa return on investment or the ROI. Remember that from the formula that we have, here I have computed it for you. So, katong kung giingon ninyo nga operating income with each of the division. For the snacks, we have 94,080. Divided it by the invested assets, which is 448,000, which gives you 21%. And then for the canned foods, again, katong giingon nga mag-focus ta sa operating income and then the investment assets. So 141,120 divided by 940,800. The answer is 15%. And for the frozen foods, we have here 105,000. You divide it by its total investment assets, which is 750,000. The answer is 14%. Now here in this table, Mo na nino ang answer. So we have here 21% for snack goods division and 15% for canned foods division and 14% for frozen foods division. So next we are going to get the profit margin and investment turnover. So ana ni siya? Remember the DuPont formula, you have the return on investment, profit margin multiplied by the investment turnover. For profit margin, we have operating income sales with respect to sales. And for the investment turnover, we have the sales with respect to investment assets. So, here, remember with our formula, kana siya, no? So, kani siya nga, kaning operating income, patulan na siyang kuan ato. So, for our profit margin, with the DuPont formula, of course, masolve na nimo, no, sa makuha nimo si profit margin using the formula which is operating income is to sales. So, kani siya nga mga details dinhi makita na nimo sa gihatag nga data dinhi. So the operating income mo na siya no 94,080 mo na siya with respect to the sales ang iyahang total sales or revenue which is 784,000 mo na siya i-divide nimo, the answer is 12%. So you already have the profit margin mo na answer nimo dinhi. For the snacks goods division you have 12% and so on and so forth. The same formula you are going to follow sa profit margin which is operating income is to sales. So that is 15%. And for frozen foods, you have 10%. So, for the answer, kay you have given your kuan man given the questions no nga you are going to solve for the profit margin for all the three divisions. And then next, for the investment turnover, using again the same formula, sales is to invested assets. So sales sa snack goods, you have there the revenues of 784,000 katong gihatag nga data ganina. And then the invested assets or the total invested assets which is 448,000. So i-divide lang nimo, you are going to have the 1.75 the investment turnover for the snack goods. And then for the canned foods and frozen foods, the same formula that you're going to follow. Mo na siya ang answer nimo din ha, it is 1. And then for the frozen foods, which is 1.40. So that is going to be the answer, aning dapita. Okay? So, next is our residual income. So we have the formula there. So, kani siyang minimum acceptable operating income. Of course, makita na to sa formula. And remember that ang gihatag nga percentage is 14%. So, with the 14%, ani ka dinhi, you are going to solve it here. So, snack goods, invested assets, 448 times 14%, you are going to have 62,720 because i-multiply nimo siya 14% because mo may gihatag no nga kanang acceptable return on investment, including with the canned foods ang iyahas ang invested assets i-multiply sad nimo and so on with the frozen food. So you are going to have this data nga 62,720, 131,712, and for the frozen foods 105,000. So mo na imo ibutang dinhi. Now for the final answer, of course, in order to get the residual income, operating income again from the from what you call this one, the gihatag nga data dinhi, no? Makuha na nimo siya dayon. So operating income minus 62 kaning answer nimo dinhi, that would give you the answer of 31,360. So you follow along with the formula and then you can have the answer for the residual income. So that's how we are going to solve for the residual income. Now let's move on with the transfer pricing. So here we have the market price approach, negotiated price approach, and then we also have the cost price approach. So for the market price approach, the transfer price is the price at which the product or service transferred could be sold to outside buyers. And then the negotiated price approach allows the managers to agree or negotiate, of course, with the word negotiated, no, among themselves on a transfer price. So the only constraint is that the transfer price be less than the market price but greater than the supplying division's variable cost per unit. So here, cost price approach is, or sometimes called kanang variable or production cost, is used to set transfer prices. So a variety of costs may be used in this approach, including total product cost per unit and variable product cost per unit. So this approach is most often used when the responsibility centers are organized as cost centers. So here, sometimes we wonder, no, how divisions charge each other for products or services. So it is through a mechanism known as transfer pricing. So we delve into the intriguing world of transfer pricing, exploring the three common approaches, of course, katong i-discuss na to ganina. So first, we have the market price approach. So market price approach, it is a straightforward as it sounds, no? Straightforward lang siya. Type of approach. So the divisions use market prices to determine the transfer price. So this approach is most effective in a competitive market where products or services are similar and easily comparable. And it encourages efficiency since each division operates as a separate entity, striving to outperform the other. So, but it does not have a downside. So, I mean, it does have a downside. So, kaning image nga, kung gipakita with the stock market, of course, when market fluctuations, no, it can influence the transfer price, causing inconsistencies and unpredictability. So, next, we have the market price approach. Okay, example ani niya. So here, we have from Wilson Company. So si Wilson, they have two divisions. They have Eastern and Western Division. So si Eastern Division, no, ni Wilson Company, na siya maka-generate siya og product 50,000 units. And then gibaligya na niya og $20 per unit. So si Eastern Division na siya sales nga 1 million. And then sa Western Division ni Wilson Company, makagama siya og 20,000 units. And then gibaligya na niya og $40 per unit. So si Western Division naa siya income nga 800,000. So the total ang income sa company, that is 1,800. No? So, ang selling price mo gigamit nila sa pagkuan nila transfer price. So, it can be nga, for example, kaning expenses, makita nimo for the 50 units, ang iyahang silbi puhunan anak niya sa iyang expenses is $10 per unit. So, mo na iyang expense, kani 50,000. Now, si Western Division, ang iyahang paggama sa unit is naasa $30 per unit. So, it can be nga si Western Division, gakuha siya, gapalit siya gikan ni kuan, gapalit siya gikan ni Eastern Division. Gigamit niya ang $20 per unit. Gi-transfer niya dinhi. Gidugangan niya og another $10 kay it can be ang ihang premium, no, ingon ana. So, mo na nga pagbaligya niya $30. So nagihapon siya kanang kinitaan, no. So sa Western Division. So mo na siya nagbase man siya sa market price, pag transfer niya sa pricing kanang dili kuan siya, no, overall it helps the company gihapon. So ana nga situation, dili kayo siya labad, no, ang market price nga approach. And the next is a negotiated price approach. Ang negotiated price approach, it involves the selling and buying divisions agreeing on a price. So, mo na ni kanang kung sa Bisaya pa, kanang maghangyo-hangyo ta ba, no? So it promotes flexibility and allows for adjustments based on the specific circumstances of the division. So however, it's not that rosy, no? So the negotiation process can be time consuming and there is a risk of power imbalances where one division may dictate the price. Kay kuan man kana lagi you negotiate with the pricing. So one party is going to kuan say kani akong price ingon na. So mo na siyang negotiated price. No? Customizing pricing agreements between two companies or individuals. Mo na basic niya nga kuan. So this is wala siya na change, no, sorry for that, but this is a negotiated price approach kana siya. This is the example. So kani siya nga example ani is makita nimo nga si Western Division ning palit siya kay Eastern Division pero nihangyo siya, no, instead of buying it $20 nakuha niya for 15. But because isa lang sila ka company, gidugangan niya ang iyang expense 25. So it's going to be there's a transfer of kanang profit, but overall imo siyang ma-analyze looking in this data. Si Wilson Company ra gihapon ang na-benefitan. So bisan pa og ning lower price si Eastern Division for the Western Division, but because si Western Division nagpuno siya, no, sa iyahang per unit, same ra gihapon, no, it is still beneficial to the company. Okay, so next we have the cost price approach. We have in the cost price approach, ang iyaha ana is transfer pricing is set based on the cost of production or rendering of services. Kaning cost price na to. And then you have two. So total product cost per unit and variable product cost per unit. So the transfer price or the selling price sa cost price approach, you're going to include all the direct materials, direct labor, and factory overhead. Now, if you're going to use variable product cost per unit, the transfer price or selling price, still the same, but you are going to exclude na nimo si factory nga overhead. So note that the cost price approach is most often used when the responsibility centers are organized as cost centers. So when responsibility centers are organized as profit or investment centers, the cost price approach is normally not used. So to sum it up, no, the market price approach promotes efficiency and competition but is prone to market fluctuations. The negotiated price approach offers flexibility and adaptability but can be time-consuming and susceptible to power imbalances. And finally, the cost price approach ensures cost coverage but can lead to complacency and lack of efficiency improvements. So each of these approaches has its pros and cons, and the choice of approach largely depends on the company's objectives, market conditions, and the nature of the products or services being transferred. So it's a delicate balancing act that requires strategic thought and careful considerations. So the next time you wonder about inner workings of a company, remember that this little nugget about transfer pricing, it's just one of the many intricate mechanisms that keep the wheels of commerce turning. So thank you very much for watching this presentation and for listening to my discussion for today. Thank you.